Welcome back into the Rowdy Studio. I'm Stephen Levine. That's Tom Vandervoort. Jimmie Johnson made it interesting, but...
until he didn't.
Until he didn't.
Or until his team didn't.
His car didn't.
Yeah. I mean, the guys missed the lug nut. That was kind of it. I mean, then obviously the gear problem, the rear end gear problem sealed the deal. But the missed lug nut, that was it. I mean, that was it.
You don't think he could have come back from that?
No,
I guess,
absolutely not. That was it. That was it. They cracked.
Well, wait a minute. Brad Keselowski and the number 2 team had their own problems on pit road.
They really did. And I got to tell you something. They came very close to losing that thing.
I don't think so.
I think they made some tactical errors yesterday, and I'm not dwelling on the negative. This is a fantastic championship for Brad Keselowski. It is well-deserved. But they didn't cover Jimmie's moves, and they let him get off sequence with them, and it almost came back to bite them. I'm glad it didn't. I'm glad for Brad. I'm glad for Paul Wolfe. I'm glad for Raj Penske. I kind of wish it had played out and we could have seen how it unfolded, because it would have been very interesting.
It would have been nice if it had played out, but even if Jimmie won that race, I think Brad Keselowski would have been fine. He ran in the top 10 most of the day. He would have been fine by
1 point.
Wait a minute. First of all, he ran in the top 10 most of the day. Second of all,
he wasn't going to finish there.
Second of all, you don't know if Jimmie Johnson had stayed in the race. If Brad Keselowski might have pushed harder, they might have made some different choices. You can't say, well, even if Jimmie won, he still would have finished 15th. You just don't know that.
That's right. You can't say that.
He might have finished 8th.
And he might have finished a lot further back. Bear in mind, he was running 23rd, 24th when Jimmie went out of the race. Look, it was going to be interesting. But that aside, Keselowski's your champion. It's well-deserved. Jimmie Johnson, Phoenix, and Homestead, 2 just horrible results.
Well,
and he finished 3rd in the standings.
And Brad, let's give credit where credit is due, was more consistent over the 10 chase races than Jimmie Johnson was.
Certainly that's true.
And consistency wins this championship because of the way our point system is built.
Absolutely the case.
So Brad Keselowski earned this. It's not, yes, did Jimmie Johnson make it easier? Certainly. But Jimmie Johnson didn't give this championship to Brad Keselowski.
No.
Brad Keselowski and the Penske team earned this championship, and it's well-deserved, and I think it's great for the sport. Not that Jimmie winning a championship would have been bad for the sport.
No, I think it is great for the sport.
But I think it's great for the sport. It's great for Roger Penske.
Listen, Brad Keselowski has got some qualities in a champion that I think we're really going to enjoy. I mean, what he said at the end of that race, I don't know if he'd thought that out ahead of time about how everyone told me I wasn't big enough and strong enough. Then he said, and you know what, I'm not, but as a team we are. That was extremely eloquent.
It was eloquent, and he had invoked that Ray Lewis quote before, so it wasn't, I don't know if he planned on saying it in victory lane, but it's certainly a quote that he had tweeted about and he had talked about in days prior. But you're right, he's eloquent, he's outspoken without being adversarial. Necessarily, which I think is really good. He's aggressive without being reckless, which I think is great. And he's only 3 years into his Cup career. That's amazing.
Yeah, it is. It'll be very interesting to see what happens with his race team now if they're switching to Ford next year. They got Dodge a championship on the way out the door.
First since 1975.
Right. Now, how will that adjustment go? Of course, everyone's going to adjust to a new body next year. Every race team will. So in that sense, it doesn't really put the Penske guys behind too much. Obviously, they'll have an alliance with Roush Fenway, especially on the engine side. So I think he'll be right there in the mix. He's proved he's got the mettle, and it's a great story for NASCAR.
All right, for Tom Vandervoort, I'm Stephen Levine. Thanks a lot for watching.